Good evening, friends, and welcome to Sleepy Time Tales, a podcast aimed at helping you to get a good night's sleep. Do you find your mind troubled with the stresses of modern life, especially when the lights are out and you're trying to get a restful night? Does your spinning mind keep you awake? Follow my voice down the path towards a good night's rest. Listen to me tell a story that will keep your mind from wandering to your daytime problems, the ones you can't solve right now and will be easier to solve while rested. Listen to my voice and allow yourself to drift, following the twists and turns of the story, but slowly letting go and drifting into sleep. Let my voice wash over you at a comfortable volume and allow yourself to be distracted from the stresses and worries that play on your mind. Whether you need help falling asleep or going back to sleep in the middle of the night, you can trust me to keep you company and help you to wake up tomorrow in a rested state. You may need to try out Sleepy Time Tales for a few nights to get used to the slightly strange idea, but I believe it will be well worth your while. I'm here to work with you, to create a safe space, a cocoon in which you can curl up and allow nature to take its course. So settle down, relax, and allow yourself to get lost in my telling of tonight's story. Before we get to tonight's reading, I'd like to ask for a couple of minutes of your time. Sleepy Time Tales is a listener-supported podcast. I can only keep it going. I can only pay for the services and tools that I use and justify the time that I spend on it, thanks to generosity of listeners like you. So if you find Sleepy Time Tales useful, if it helps you to get a restful night, and you would like to keep it going out to thousands of insomniacs just like you, and you have the means to help me out to keep it going, please consider supporting it on the Patreon at patreon.com/sleepytimetales. This is monthly support that not only helps me keep the lights on, but you can get fun bonuses based on your contribution level. So go along there, take a look, and sign up if you're interested. And I do have to shout out a couple of new patrons, which signed up in the last couple of weeks. Thanks very much to both Carla and Kyra, who joined the Patreon, and I hope you all are enjoying your bonuses. But if monthly seems like a big ask, you can also make once-off tips through the tip jar on the website. And I do want to emphasize, though, if you can't help out financially, please don't even worry about it. Times are tough for everyone, and I'm not here to make things worse and putting pressure on you. But if you would also like to help out without having to take on any financial burdens, you can simply spread the word. Whether in person or on social media, if you think people will benefit from listening to Sleepy Time Tales, just let them know about it. And that's enough of that. Let's find out more about the wood beyond the world. We pick up today with The Wood Beyond the World by William Morris, and we pick up when Golden Walther and his ship find a new land. Chapter 5. Now they come to a new land. 3 days they drave before the wind, and on the 4th the clouds lifted, the sun shone out, and the offing was clear. The wind had much abated, though it still blew a breeze, and was a headwind for sailing towards the country of Langton. So then the master said that, since they were bewildered, and the wind so ill to deal with, it were best to go still before the wind, that they might make some land and get knowledge of the whereabouts from the folk thereof. Withal he said that he deemed the land not to be very far distant. So did they, and sailed on pleasantly enough, for the weather kept on mending, and the wind fell till it was but a light breeze, yet still foul for Langton. So wore 3 days, and on the eve of the 3rd, the man from the topmast cried out that he saw land ahead, and so did they all before the sun was quite set, though it were but a cloud no bigger than a man's hand. When night fell, they struck not sail, but went forth toward the land, fair and softly, for it was early summer, so that the nights were neither long nor dark. But when it was broad daylight, they opened a land, a long shore of rocks and mountains, and naught else they could see at first. Nevertheless, as day wore and they drew nigher, first they saw how the mountains fell away from the sea, and behind a long wall of sheer cliff. And coming nigher yet, they beheld a green plain, going up a little in green bents and slopes to the feet of said cliff wall. No city or haven did they see there, not even when they were far nigher to the land. Nevertheless, they hankered for the peace of the green earth after all the tossing and unrest of the sea. And whereas they also doubted not to find at least good and fresh water, and belike other bait in the plains under the mountains, they still sailed on, not unmerrily, so that by nightfall they cast anchor in 5-fathom water hard by the shore. Next morning they found that they were lying a little way off the mouth of a river, not right great. So they put out their boats and towed the ship up into said river. And when they had gone up it for a mile or thereabouts, they found the sea water failed, for little was the ebb and flow of the tide on that coast. Then was the river deep and clear, running between smooth grassy land like to meadows. Also on the left board they saw presently 3 head of neat cattle going, as if in a meadow of a homestead in their own land, and a few sheep, and thereafter about a bow draught from the river, they saw a little house of wood and straw thatch under a wooded mound, with orchard trees about it. They wondered little thereat, for they knew no cause why that land should not be builded, though it were in the far outlands. However, they drew their ship up to the bank, thinking that they would at least abide a while and ask tidings, and have some refreshing of the green plain which was so lovely and pleasant. But while they were busied herein, they saw a man come out of the house and down to the river to meet them. And they saw that he was tall and old, long hoary of hair and beard, and clad mostly in the skins of beasts. He drew nigh without any fear or mistrust, and coming close to them, gave them the seal of the day, in a kindly and pleasant voice. The shipmaster greeted him in his turn, and said withal, "Old man, art thou the king of this country?" The elder laughed. "It hath had none other a long while," said he, "and at least there is no other son of Adam here to gainsay." "Thou art alone here then?" said the master. "Yea," said the old man, "save for the beasts of the field and the wood, and the creeping things and fowl. Wherefore it is sweet to me to hear your voices." Said the master, "Where be the other houses of the town?" The old man laughed. Said he, "When I said that I was alone, I meant that I was alone in this land, and not only alone in this stead. There is no house save this betwixt the sea and the dwellings of the bears, over the cliff wall yonder, yea, and a long way over it." "Yea," quoth the shipmaster, grinning, "and be the bears of thy country so manlike that they dwell in builded houses?" The old man shook his head. "Sir," said he, "as to their bodily fashion, it is altogether manlike, save that they be one and all higher and bigger than most. For they be bears only in name, they be a nation of half-wild men. For I have been told by them that there be many more than the tribe of whose folk I have seen, and that they spread wide about behind these mountains from east to west. Now, sir, as to their souls and understandings I warrant them not, for miscreants they be, trowing neither in God nor his hallows." Said the master, "Shall they in Mahon then?" "Nay," said the elder, "I wot not for sure that they have so much as a false god." though I have it from them that they worship a certain woman with mickle worship. Then spake Walter, Yea, good sir, and how knowest thou that? Dost thou deal with them at all? Said the old man, Well, some of that folk come hither and have of me what I can spare, a calf or two, or half dozen of lambs or hoggets, or a skin of wine or cider of my own making. And they give me in return such things as I can use, as skins of hart and bear and other peltries. For now I am hold, I can but little of the hunting hereabout. Whiles also, they bring little lumps of pure copper, and would give me gold also, but it is of little use in this lonely land. Sooth to say, to me they're not masterful or rough-handed, but glad I am that they've been here but of late, and are not like to come again this while. For terrible they are of aspect, and whereas ye be aliens, belike they would not hold their hands from off you, and moreover ye have weapons and other matters which they would covet sorely. Quoth the master, Since thou dealest with these wild men, will ye not deal with us in chaffer? For whereas we are come from long travel, we hanker after a fresh victual, and here aboard are many things which were for thine avail. Said the old man, All that I have is yours, so that ye do but leave me enough till my next ingathering of wine and cider, such as it is. I have plenty for your service. Ye may drink it till it's all gone, if ye will. A little corn and meal I have, but not much. Yet are ye welcome thereto, since the standing corn in my garth is done blossoming, and I have other meat. Cheeses I have, and dried fish, take what ye will thereof. But as to my neat and sheep, if ye have sore need of any, and will have them, I may not say you nay, but I pray if you may do without them, not to take my milk beasts or their engenderers. For, as ye have heard me say, the bear folk have been here but of late, and they have had of me all I might spare. But now let me tell you, if ye long after flesh meat, that there is venison of hart and hind, yea, and of buck and doe to be had on this plain, and about the little wood at the feet of the rock wall yonder. Neither are they exceeding wild, for since I may not take them, I scare them not, and no other man do they see to hurt them, for the bear folk come straight to my house and fare straight home thence. But I will lead you to the nighest way to where the venison is easiest to be gotten. As to the wares in your ship, if you will give me aught, I would take it with good will, and chiefly if you have a fair knife or two and a roll of linen cloth, that were a good refreshment to me. But in any case, what I have to give is free to you and welcome. The shipmaster laughed. Friend, said he, we can thee mickle thanks for all that thou biddest us, and what well that we be no lifters or sea thieves to take thine livelihood from thee. So tomorrow, if thou wilt, we will go with thee and upraise the hunt, and meanwhile we will come aland and walk on the green grass, and water our ship with any good fresh water. So the old carle went back to his house to make ready what cheer he might, and the shipmen, who were 21 all told, what with the mariners and Arnold and Walter's servants, went ashore, all but 2 who watched the ship and abode their turn. They went well weaponed, for both the master and Walter deemed wariness wisdom, lest all might not be so good as it seemed. They took of their sailcloths ashore and tilted them in on the meadow betwixt the house and the ship, and the carle brought them what he had for their avail, of fresh fruits and cheeses and milk and wine and cider and honey, and there they feasted nowise ill and were right fain. Chapter 6. The old man tells Walter of himself. Walter sees a shard in the cliff wall. But when they had done their meat and drink, the master and the shipmen went about the watering of the ship, and the others strayed off along the meadow, so that presently Walter was left alone with the carle, and fell to speech with him, and said, Father, meseemeth thou shouldest have some strange tale to tell, and as yet we have asked thee of naught save meat for our bellies. Now if I ask thee concerning thy life, and how thou camest hither and abided here, wilt thou tell me aught? The old man smiled on him and said, Son, my tale were long to tell, and may happen concerning much thereof my memory should fail me. And withal there's grief therein, which I were loth to awaken. Nevertheless, if thou ask, I will answer as I may, and any case will tell thee naught save the truth. Said Walter, Well then, hast thou been long here? Yea, said the carle, since I was a young man and a stalwart knight. Said Walter, This house, didst thou build it, and raise these garths, and plant orchard and vineyard, and gather together the neat and the sheep, or did some other do all this for thee? Said the carle, I did none of all of this, for there was one here before me, and I entered into his inheritance, and though this were a lordly manor with a fair castle thereon, all well stocked and plenished. Said Walter, Didst thou find thy foregoer alive here? Yes, said the older, yet he lived but for a little while after I came to him. He was silent a while, and then he said, I slew him. Even so would he have had it, though I bade him a better lot. Said Walter, Didst thou come hither of thine own will? Mayhappen, said the carle, who knoweth? Now have I no will to do either this or that. It is want that maketh me do nor refrain. Said Walter, Tell me this, why didst thou slay the man? Did he any scathe to thee? Said the elder, When I slew him, I deemed he was doing me all scathe, but now I know that it was not so. Thus it was. I would needs go where he had been before, and he stood in the path against me, and I overthrew him and went on the way I would. What came thereof, said Walter. Evil came of it, said the carle. Then was Walter silent a while, and the old man spake nothing, but there came a smile in his face that was both sly and somewhat sad. Walter looked on him and said, Was it from hence that thou wouldst go that road? Yea, said the carle. Said Walter, And now wilt thou tell me what that road was, whither it went, and whereto it led, that thou must needs wend it, though thy first stride were over a dead man? I will not tell thee, said the carle. Then they held their peace, both of them, and thereafter got on to other talk of no import. So wore the day till night came, and they slept safely. And on the morrow after they had broken their fast, the more part of them set off with the carle to the hunting. And they went, all of them, a 3 hours faring towards the foot of the cliffs, which was all grown over with coppice, hazel, and thorn, with here and there a big oak or ash tree. There it was, said the old man, where the venison was most and best. Of their hunting need naught be said, saving that when the carle had put them on the track of the deer and shown them what to do, he came back again with Walter, who had no great lust for the hunting, and sorely longed to have some more talk with the said carle. He for his part seemed naught loth thereto, and so led Walter to a mound or hillock amidst the clear of the plain, whence all was to be seen save where the wood covered it. But just before where they now lay down there was no wood, save low bushes, betwixt them and the rock wall. Walter noted that whereas otherwise, save in one place whereto their eyes were turned, the cliff seemed well nigh or quite sheer, or indeed in some places beetling over, in that said place they fell away from each other on either side, and before the sinking was a slope or scree that went gently up toward the sinking of the wall. Walter looked long and earnestly at this place and spake naught, till the carle said, "What? Thou hast found something before thee to look on. What is it then?" Quoth Walter, "Some would say that where yonder slopes run together up towards that sinking in the cliff wall, there will be a pass into the country beyond." The carle smiled and said, "Yea, son, nor so saying would they err, for that is the pass into the Bear country, whereby those huge men come down to chaffer with me." "Yea," said Walter, and therewith he turned him a little, and scanned the rock wall, and saw how a few miles from the pass it turned somewhat sharply towards the sea, narrowing the plain much there till it made a bite, the face whereof looked well nigh north, instead of west, as did the more part of the wall. And in the midst of that northern-looking bite was a dark place, which seemed to Walter like a downright shard in the cliff. For the face of the wall was of bleak grey, and it was but little furrowed. So then Walter spake, "Lo, old friend, there yonder is again a place that meseemeth is a pass. Whereunto doth that one lead?" And he pointed to it. But the old man did not follow the pointing of his finger, but, looking down on the ground, answered confusedly and said, "Maybe I wot not. I deem that it also leadeth into the Bear country by a roundabout road. It leadeth into the far land." Walter answered naught, for a strange thought had come uppermost in his mind, that the carle knew far more than he would say of that pass, and that he himself might be led thereby to find wondrous three. He caught his breath hardly, and his heart knocked against his ribs, but he refrained from speaking for a long while. But at last he spake in a sharp, hard voice, which he scarce knew for his own. "Father, tell me, I adjure thee by God and All Hallows, was it through yonder shard that the road lay, where thou must needs make thy first stride over a dead man?" The old man spake not for a while, then he raised his head and looked Walter full in the eyes, and said in a steady voice, "No, it was not." Thereafter they sat looking at each other a while, but at last Walter turned his eyes away. But he knew not what they beheld, nor where he was. But he was as one in a swoon, for he knew full well that the carle had lied to him, and that he might as well have said aye as no, and told him that it verily was by that same shard that he had stridden over a dead man. Nevertheless he made as little semblance thereof as he might, and presently came to himself, and fell to talking of other matters that had naught to do with the adventures of the land. But after a while he spake suddenly and said, "My master, I was thinking of a thing." "Yea, of what?" said the carle. "Of this," said Walter, "that here in this land be strange adventures toward, and that if we, and I in especial, were to turn our backs on them, and go home with nothing done, it were pity of our lives, for all will be dull and deedless there. I was deeming it were good if we tried the adventure." "What adventure?" said the old man, rising up on his elbow and staring sternly on him. Said Walter, "The wending yonder pass to the eastward, whereby the huge men came to thee from out of the Bear country, that we might see what should come thereof." The carle leaned back again, and smiled and shook his head and spake, That adventure was speedily proven. Death would come of it, my son. Yea, and how? Said Walter. The carle said, the big men would take thee, and offer thee up as a blood offering to that woman who is their Mormet. And if ye go all, then shall they do the like with all of you. Said Walter, is that sure? Dead sure, said the carle. How knowest thou this? Said Walter. I've been there myself, said the carle. Yea, said Walter, but thou camest away whole. Art thou sure thereof? Said the carle. Thou art alive yet, old man, said Walter, for I have seen thee eat thy meat, which ghosts used not to do. And he laughed. But the old man answered soberly, if I escaped, it was by this, that another woman saved me, and not often shall that befall. Nor wholly was I saved. My body escaped, forsooth. But where is my soul? Where is my heart and my life? Young man, I rede thee, try no such adventure, but go home to thy kindred if thou canst. Moreover, wouldst thou fare alone, the other shall hinder thee. Said Walter, I am the master. They shall do as I bid them. Besides, they will be well pleased to share my goods amongst them if I give them a writing to clear them of all charges which might be brought against them. My son, said the carle, I pray thee go not to thy death. Walter heard him silently, but as if he were persuaded to refrain. And then the old man fell to and told him much concerning the spare folks and their customs, speaking very freely of them. But Walter's ears were scarce open to his talk, whereas he deemed that he should have naught to do with these wild men, and he durst not ask again concerning the country whereto led the pass on the northward. Chapter 7. Walter comes to the shard in the rock wall. As they were in converse thus, they heard the hunters blowing on their horns all together, whereon the old man arose and said, I deem by the blowing that the hunt will be over and done, and that they be blowing on their fellows who have gone scattermeal about the wood. It is now some 5 hours after noon, and our men will be getting back with their venison, and will be the faintest of the victuals they have caught. Therefore will I hasten on before and get ready fire and water and other matters for the cooking. Wilt thou come with me, young master, or abide thy men here? Walter said lightly, I will rest and abide them here, since I cannot fail to see them hence as they go on their ways to thine house. And it may be well that I be at hand to command them and forbid and put some order among them. For rough playmates they be, some of them, and are all heated with the hunting and joy of the green earth. Thus he spoke, as if naught were toward save supper and bed, but inwardly hope and fear were contending in him, and again his heart beat so hard that he deemed that the carle must surely hear it. But the old man took him but according to his outward seeming, and nodded his head, and went away quietly toward his house. When they had gone a little, Walter rose up heedfully. He had with him a scrip wherein some cheese and hard fish, and a little flasket of wine. A short bow he had with him, and a quiver of arrows. And he was girt with a strong and good sword, and a wood knife withal. He looked to all his gear that was naught amiss, and then speedily went down off the mound. And when he was come down, he found that it covered him from men covering out of the wood, as if he went straight thence to that shard of the rock wall, where was the pass that led southward. Now it is no nay thitherward he turned, and went wisely, lest the carle should make a backward cast, and see him, or lest any straggler of his folk might happen upon him. For to say sooth, he deemed they did wind him, that would be like to let him of his journey. He had noted the bearing of the cliffs now the shard, and whereas he could see their heads everywhere except from the depths of the thicket, he was not like to go astray. He had made no great way ere he heard the horns blowing all together again in one place, and looking thitherward through the leafy boughs, for he was now amidst of a thicket, he saw his men thronging the mound, and had no doubt therefore that they were blowing on him. But being well under cover, he needed it naught, and lying still a little, saw them go down off the mound, and go all of them towards the carle's house, still blowing as they went, but not faring scattermeal. Wherefore it was clear that they were naught troubled about him. So he went on his way to the shard, and there was nothing to say of his journey until he got before it, with the last of the clear day, and entered it straightway. It was in sooth a downright breach or cleft in the rock wall, and there was no hill or bent leading up to it. Nothing but a tumble of stones before it, which was somewhat uneasy going. Yet nor did naught but labour to overcome it. And when he had got over this, and was in the very pass itself, he found it no ill going. Forsooth at first it was a little worse than a rough road betwixt two great stony slopes, though a little trickle of water ran down amidst of it. So though it was so nigh nightfall, yet Walter pressed on, yea, and long after the very night was come. For the moon rose wide and bright a little after nightfall. But at last he had gone so long and was so wearied, that he deemed it naught but wisdom to rest him, and so lay down on a piece of greensward, betwixt the stones, when he had eaten a morsel out of his satchel and drunk of the water out of the stream. There as he lay, if he had any doubt of peril, his weariness soon made it all one to him, for presently he was sleeping as soundly as any man in Langton on home. Chapter 8. Walter Wends the Waste. Day was yet young when he awoke. He leapt to his feet, and went down to the stream and drank of its waters, and washed the night off him in a pool thereof, and then set forth on his way again. When he had gone some 3 hours, the road, which had been going up all the way, but somewhat gently, grew steeper, and the bent on either side lowered and lowered till it sank at last altogether. And then was he on a rough mountain neck, with little grass and no water, save that now and again was a soft place with a flow amidst of it, and such places he must needs fetch a compass about, lest he be mired. He gave himself but little rest, eating what he needs must as he went. The day was bright and calm, so that the sun was never hidden, and he steered by due south. All that day he went and found no more change in that huge neck, save that whiles it was more and whiles less steep. Little before nightfall he happened on a shallow pool some 20 yards over, and he deemed it good to rest there, since there was water for his avail. They might have made somewhat more out of the tail end of the day. When dawn came again, he awoke and arose, nor spent much time over his breakfast, but pressed on all he might. And now he said to himself that whatsoever other peril were athwart his way, he was out of the danger of the chase of his own folk. All this while he had seen no four-footed beast, save now and again a hill fox, and once some outlandish kind of hare, and a fowl but very few, a crow or two, a long-winged hawk, and twice an eagle high up aloft. Again the third night he slept in the stony wilderness which still led him up and up. Only toward the end of the day him seemed that it had been less steep for a long while. Otherwise naught was changed. On all sides it was naught but the endless neck, for from naught could be seen but some other part of itself. This fourth night withal he found no water where he might rest, so that he awoke parched and longing to drink, just when the dawn was at its coldest. But on the fifth morrow the ground rose but little, and at last, when he had been going wearily a long while, and now hard on noontide, his thirst grieved him sorely. He came on a spring welling out from under a rock, the water wherefrom trickled feebly away. So eager was he to drink, that at first he heeded naught else. But when his thirst was fully quenched, his eyes caught sight of the stream which flowed from the well, and he gave a shout, for lo, it was running south. Wherefore it was with a merry heart that he went on, and as he went, came on more streams, all running south or thereabouts. He hastened on all he might, but in despite of all the speed he made, and that he felt the land now going down southward, night overtook him in that same wilderness. Yet when he stayed at last for sheer weariness, he lay down in what seemed by the moonlight to be a shallow valley, with a ridge at the southern end thereof. He slept long, and when he awoke the sun was high in the heavens, and never was brighter or clearer morning on earth than was that. He arose and ate of what little was yet left him, and drank of the water of a stream which he had followed the evening before, and beside which he had laid him down, and then set forth again with no great hope to come on new tidings that day. But yet when he was fairly afoot, him seemed that there was something new in the air which he breathed, that was soft and bore sweet scents home to him, whereas heretofore, and that especially for the last 3 or 4 days, it had been harsh and void, like the face of the desert itself. So on he went, and presently was mounting the ridge aforesaid, and as oft happens when one climbs a steep place, he kept his eyes on the ground, till he felt he was on the top of the ridge. Then he stopped to take breath, and raised his head and looked, and lo, he was verily on the brow of the great mountain neck, and down below him was the hanging of the great hill slopes, which fell down, not slowly as those he had been those days a mounting, but speedily enough, though with little of broken places or sheer cliffs. But beyond this last of the desert there was before him a lovely land of wooded hills, green plains and little valleys, stretching out far and wide, till it ended at last in great blue mountains and white snowy peaks beyond them. Then, for very surprise of joy, his spirit wavered, and he felt faint and dizzy, so that it was fain to sit down for a while and cover his face with his hands. Presently he came to his sober mind again, and stood up, and looked forth keenly, and saw no sign of any dwelling of man. But he said to himself that might well be because the good and well-grassed land was still so far off, and that he might yet look to find men in their dwellings when he had left the mountain passes quite behind him. So therewith he fell to going his ways down the mountain, and lost little time therein, whereas he now had his livelihood to look to. And at the end of the chapter, that's where I'm going to call it for tonight. This is so far a fairly fascinating read, so if you'd like to pick up where I'm leaving off, please do so on Project Gutenberg at the link in the show notes. Thanks again for joining me on this episode of Sleepy Time Tales, the podcast designed around a bedtime story to help you to get a restful night. New episodes will be released every Sunday night to give you something fresh to help you rest in a new week. But make sure to follow or subscribe in whatever service you use, so that you get your new episodes whenever they come out. Good night, and sweet dreams.